House will please be in order. Those not having the privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber. All members and guests in the gallery will please rise. In lieu of prayer today, we have Mary Catherine Strunk, guest of the lady from the 32nd Delegate Staggers, with a rendition of How Great Thou Art.
O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And when I think of God, his Son not sparing, sent him to die, I scarce can take it in, that on the cross my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart? Then I shall bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
All members and guests will please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance today by the lady from the 32nd, Delegate Staggers.
Will you all join me, please, in pledging allegiance to our country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Friday, January 18th, 2019.
Gentleman from the 28th, Delegate Pack.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
Gentleman from the 28th, Delegate Pack, ask unanimous consent that further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears no objection, so ordered. Introduction of guests. Gentleman from the 21st, Delegate Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery today, I have a couple of very special guests. I have my parents, Daniel and Debbie Dean, and my cousin, Catherine Carter.
Gentleman from the 13th, Delegate Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to welcome the West Virginia Professional Educators Association to the Capitol today. We have with us in the North Gallery David Gladkowski and board members Mark Higginbotham from Putnam County. So if you'd please make all the teachers here and friend Mark Higginbotham welcome, that would be appreciated.
Gentleman from the 10th, Delegate Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the Capitol is Optometrist Day, and from Wood County, we have Doctors Mark Sanelli and Mitchell Kerber. If they'd stand, would the House please make them feel welcome? And in the South Gallery today, I have my daughter, Betsy Jane, and she's accompanied today by Chris Shackelford. And I have a very special page with me today on the floor. It's my personal page, Bella Grace Kelly, who is my granddaughter. Would you please make my family feel welcome? Thank you.
Gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery today, we have Drs. Laura Supa and Dr. Kayla Campbell of the Optometrists Association. Would the House please make all of our optometrists feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Hornbuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have some very special guests with us. One of them is a parent that's in the West Gallery. If she would please stand. Her name is Paula Clay. Her daughter is on the floor paging with us today. And while she's not my page, she is family to me. Cadence, please stand up. Cadence is actually the sister of a basketball player that I have. And I will tell you that even after a bad game, practice, or my players being crazy or dealing with bad youth sports parents, Cadence is always there to put a smile on my face. House, please make them feel welcome.
Gentleman from the 19th, Delegate Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Delegate Hicks, we have two pages, two of my students from Wayne High School. They are Emily Napper and Sydney Kirk. If they would please rise and everybody give them a nice round of applause.
Gentleman from the 19th, Delegate Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Thompson and myself, I'd like to welcome 4 pages from Wayne County. These pages are from Buffalo Elementary. Their names are Cadence Robertson, Samantha Robertson, Maddox Barron, Anessa Veazey. House, please make these pages welcome.
Lady from the 32nd, Delegate Staggers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Accompanying my songbird today is her loving husband, sitting in the West Gallery so he can be closer to heaven, James Dickens. Would you all make him welcome?
Gentleman from the 44th, Delegate Hannah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the West Gallery, I have with me a student from Glade Middle Elementary. If she would please stand. Ava Snyder. She took her day off of school today to come visit us at the Legislature. Would the House please make her feel welcome?
Gentleman, the 34th, Delegate Boggs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very happy and excited today to have two of my grandchildren here with me, Carson and Kenzie Boggs, if they would both stand. And then also my son, Justin Boggs, is in the rear gallery. Justin, if you would stand, please make my family welcome.
Gentlemen, the 34th, Delegate Boggs and I are jointly pleased to introduce two pages today. We have from the Hub of the Universe in Walbach in Clay County, West Virginia, John Summers and James Paul Summers III, accompanied by their mother, Wendy Summers, in the West Gallery. Gentleman, the 19th, Delegate Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Forgot to mention one page who is here, Miss Samantha Walker. House, please make this page welcome.
Further introduction of guests. If not, reports to standing committees.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Concurrent Resolution 15, requesting the Joint Committee on Government Finance study the impact of business regulations and economic development incentives to recruit and retain small business in West Virginia. It's originating with the recommendation that it be adopted, that it be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Report to be received. Resolution be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 2346, changing the licensing requirements for certain casino employees, and House Bill 2360, placing the Athletic Commission under the Lottery Commission. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report to be received.
Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 2415, requiring the State Board of Education to adopt a policy detailing the appropriate level of computer science instruction. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to Committee on Finance.
Report to be received. Bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 2422, relating to the time for the observation of Celebrate Freedom Week. Reports back committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report to be received.
Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2412, relating to criminal acts concerning government procurement of commodities and services. House Bill 2459, exercising authority to exempt individuals domiciled within the state from certain restrictions contained in federal law, and House Bill 2462, issuing a certificate to correctional employees to carry firearms. Reports the same back with recommendation that each do pass.
Report to be received. Further reports to standing committees.
Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2005, Broadband Expansion Act of 2019. Reports back committee substitute, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report to be received. Further reports to standing committees. Reports to select committees. Messages from the Executive. Messages from the Senate.
The Clerk of the Senate announces the passage by the Senate of Senate Bill 272, updating code relating to Commission on Special Investigations.
Message to be received. Bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has adopted Senate Concurrent Resolution 11, urging Congress pass fully funded long-term surface transportation and infrastructure measures.
Message to be received. Bill resolution be referred to the Committee on Technology and Infrastructure, then the Committee on Rules. Resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 16, Caldwell Brothers Memorial Road.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with and that they be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with and that each resolution be considered having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Is there objection? Chair hears no objection, so ordered. Petitions, motions, bills introduced.
House Bill 2532, allowing certain donations by persons renewing their driver's license or vehicle registration.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and they be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Is there objection? Chair hears no objection, so ordered. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2190, modifying bail requirements.
Gentleman 27, Delegate Schott to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. House Bill 2190 relates to the release of a person that has been charged with certain misdemeanors on his or her own recognizance. Keep in mind that what we're talking about is a pretrial procedure, the purpose of which is simply to guarantee the appearance of the person charged for all court proceedings. It's not intended to punish that person, but simply to ensure appearance. The bill before you, with one exception, is the same version of a bill that passed out of this House last session by a vote of 94-4. The bill amends one section of code, which is section 62-1C-1A. It provides that a court or magistrate shall, except for good cause, release persons that are charged with certain misdemeanors on his or her own recognizance unless that person is charged with one of the following crimes. And these are the exceptions. First, a misdemeanor offense of actual violence or threat of violence against a person. Second, a misdemeanor offense where the victim was a minor, and that's as defined in section 61-8C1 of the code. Third, a misdemeanor offense involving the use of a deadly weapon, and that word, the term deadly weapon, is defined in 61-7-2 of the code. Fourth, a misdemeanor offense of the Uniform Controlled Substance Act, and that's as defined in Chapter 60A of the code. And fifth, a serious misdemeanor traffic offense is set forth in Section 17C51, that's negligent homicide, or 17C52 of the code, and that's basically DUI misdemeanors. This new provision addresses only misdemeanor offenses, not felonies. The bill also permits a prosecuting attorney to bring a motion within 10 days to set a cash or surety bond. Two basic reasons for this change in the law. First of all, a humanitarian approach. Keep in mind that the average person in regional jail, according to testimony our committee heard, is 6 days. 6 days. Think what that might do to your ability to retain a job if you're retained in a regional jail for 6 days. There is a wide disparity among our magistrates as to setting bond. Anecdotally, we've heard accounts of some magistrates who basically feel like it's their intention to punish rather than require appearance, and some of those bonds are excessive based on the facts of the case. Keep in mind also that magistrates are publicly elected officials, and some of them may be sensitive to the way their setting of bond is reported in the local paper. Secondly, each of us have issues with regional jail bills. The average person, if he's incarcerated in the regional jail for 6 days, your county would incur probably $300 plus the cost of transporting that person to the regional jail, and that does not take into account the processing fees that the regional jail incurs with regard to each of those persons. We've also heard testimony that oftentimes, and in many cases, the person is bonded out within 24 to 48 hours. So a lot of those people are bonded out in short term anyway. Releasing them on their own recognizance saves them the inconvenience. It guarantees and allows the counties to avoid those regional jail bills. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 91 yeas, 4 nays, 5 members absent not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, Chair declares the bill passed. Clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2190.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Schott moves to amend the title.
Question before the House is the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of the title amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. Ayes have it. The Chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 2311, exempting short-term license holders to submit information to the State Tax Commission once the term of the permit has expired.
Gentleman from the 56, Delegate Howe, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill provides that a short-term license or permit holder will not be required to submit any information to the tax commissioner, provided that the license holder has submitted the required information specific to the time of when the permit or license was granted. The bill also grants rulemaking authority to implement the policy. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? Gentleman from the 36, Delegate Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman yield?
Gentleman does yield.
I'm wondering, this language seems pretty broad. Does this limit the state tax commissioner from gathering information for the purpose of collecting a tax?
No, sir. In fact, if someone is delinquent on their taxes, this wouldn't even apply. They have to be current with their taxes. But what this has done is the state issues temporary permits, whether it be for a festival or something like the 90-day fireworks permits, and they continue to send monthly requests for how much did you sell, and they're reporting $0 the other 9 months out of the year, wasting time processing both on the business end and the state's end and postage and everything else.
So this relates more to their regulatory authority than to their taxing authority?
Absolutely.
Is it in a part of the code? I don't know where it's located, the section. Is it in the tax collection part of the code, or is it in a regulatory section, or article, I mean to say?
I'm told it's in a blended portion where it talks about various taxes that are available or to be collected.
Well, I noticed that the article says supervision, and I'm just wondering if that relates more to the supervising these short-term permits than it does to taxability.
Yes.
Now, there's rulemaking allowed. Will the tax commissioner be able to make it clear in rules that we're not talking about information related to tax liability?
Yes, they have rulemaking authority.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, does the gentleman wish to close debate? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 95 yeas, 0 nays, 5 members absent not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, the Chair declares the bill passed. Clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 2311.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Howe moves to amend the title.
Question before the House is the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of the title amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The title amendment is adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2008 relating to nonpartisan election of justices of the Supreme Court of Appeals.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the bill be postponed one day.
Lady from the 49th moves that the bill be postponed one day. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. Ayes have it. Motion is adopted. The bill will be postponed one day. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2193, providing the specific escheat of U.S. savings bonds.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the bill be postponed one day.
Lady from the 49th moves that the bill be postponed one day. Those in favor will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The bill will be postponed one day. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2362 relating to procedures for voting an emergency absentee ballot by qualified voters.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Robinson moves to amend the bill. This is HFA Robinson 1-21.
Does the gentleman from 36 wish to explain the amendment?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill was originated from a conversation with our Delegate Miller and his mother. His mother had an instance where she was unable to go to the voting booth to vote, and this bill would correctly give her credit for that and memorialize her within the preamble of the legislation. So this would technically rename the bill the Ardala Miller Memorial Act to recognize her for her instance in suggesting this legislation and bring it to the attention of the legislature. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. Are there members who wish to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If not, the questions on the adoption of the amendment. Those in favor of the amendment will. Roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. Those in favor of the amendment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 94 yeas, 1 nay, 5 members absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Next bill on second reading. Bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2095, assessing the college and career readiness of 11th and 12th grade students.
Bill to be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2423, prohibiting certain sex offenders from being in a supervisory position over children.
Bill to be advanced. Leaves of absence. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, for our colleagues Hill, Ellington, Fleischhauer, Kessinger, and Scaff.
Without objection, leaves will be granted. Remarks by members of the House. Gentleman from the 35th, Delegate Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the weekend, we had a tragedy happen with one of our colleagues, Delegate Scaff. His father-in-law tragically died in Ohio. And so I would just ask that the House please keep him and Marissa and the entire family and just have a moment of silence.
Will all members and guests in the galleries please rise for a moment of silence. Members and guests may be seated. Further remarks by members of the House. Gentleman from the 9th, Delegate Holland.
Mr. Speaker, if it's not too soon, I have a introduction of guests.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to announce that sponsored by the West Virginia Academy of Family Physicians and celebrating the 30th anniversary of Doc for Today program, our family doctor today is Benjamin Silverberg, MD of Morgantown, West Virginia.
Further remarks by members of the House. Introduction of guests. Gentleman from the 18th, Delegate Worrell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery, we have members and doctors from the West Virginia Association of Optometric Physicians. Please make them welcome.
Are there further introduction of guests? If not, miscellaneous business. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, subject to announcement, that the House adjourn until 11 a.m. Tuesday, January 22nd.
Lady from the 49th moves that, subject to announcements, the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. on tomorrow, Tuesday, January 22nd. Are there announcements? Gentleman from the 10th, Delegate Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet Monday afternoon at 2 p.m. for the Department of Agriculture budget hearing and at 3 p.m. for the Conservation Agency budget hearing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 35th, Delegate Capito.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Two announcements. The Committee on the Judiciary will continue the posted agenda in the committee room this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Second announcement, the Subcommittee for House Bill 2003 will meet at 9 a.m. tomorrow in the House Judiciary Committee room. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 21st, Delegate Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet today at 2 p.m. in the House Education Committee room. In addition, Republican members will caucus in the Chairman's office at noon.
Lady from the 38th, Delegate Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a reminder that your Committee on Pensions and Retirement will meet at 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon in the House Finance Committee room, and the agenda has been posted.
Gentleman from the 46th, Delegate Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Industry and Labor will meet tomorrow in the Government Organization Room at 10 a.m. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 13th, Delegate Cadle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources will meet at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning in the Government Organization Room. The agenda has been posted. Thank you.
Lady from the 3rd, Delegate Storch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Political Subdivisions will meet tomorrow at 1 in the House Education Room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure will meet this afternoon at 1 p.m. in the House Government Organization Room. The agenda has been posted.
Gentleman from the 53rd, Delegate Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Fire and EMS will meet this afternoon at 4 o'clock, and the agenda is posted.
Gentleman from the 12th, Delegate Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your subcommittee on House Bill 2378 will meet immediate following House Education meeting today. The bill everybody knows about, but immediate following the House Education meeting today.
Gentleman from the 11th, Delegate Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Two announcements. The Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet Tuesday, January 22nd at 2 o'clock in room 215E. There will be a public hearing for the Committee on Health and Human Resources on Tuesday, January 22nd from 9 to 10 o'clock on House Bill 2010 relating to foster care. Thank you.
Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Rules Committee will meet Tuesday, January 22nd at 10:45 behind the chamber.
Lady from the 38th, Delegate Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A reminder that the Women's Caucus is going to be meeting in the McManus Room immediately after session to join Senator Rucker for the Women in Racing Luncheon.
Gentleman from the 53rd, Delegate Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Fire and EMS meeting will be in the GovOrg room at 4 o'clock.
Are there further? Gentleman from the 37th, Delegate Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The state does observe Martin Luther King Jr. Day today, and I believe the ceremonial bell ringing and the other ceremony report will be out on the north side of the Capitol at noon today.
Further announcements. Further announcements. If not, the question before the House is a motion by the lady from the 49th that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. on tomorrow, Tuesday, January 22nd. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. Ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The House is adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. And with those on the floor and our guests in the gallery, please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Pastor Paul Kuhn of Hernshaw United Methodist Church in Hernshaw, West Virginia, and Coal Fork United Methodist Church in Charleston, West Virginia. And then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the Senator from Preston, Pastor Kuhn.
Let us pray. Our most gracious and loving Father, we come to you at this time as beggars, asking for so many things with our hands stretched out, trying to grasp anything we think will satisfy us. But we ask amiss. All we need to ask for is the wisdom to seek your truth, the truth that we are not wiser than you, and without you leading in our lives, we have nothing to hold on to. As we read in 1 Corinthians 3:19, for the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. Lord, these are perilous times we are living in, and I pray for each person in this chamber today that they will first seek you for wisdom and knowledge, that they will let you lead them daily, and that through you they will make the right decisions for this great state in which we live in. May every decision we make today be made with your guidance and your glory of you, our Heavenly Father. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. The Senator from Preston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will those on the floor and those in the gallery please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. The reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, Friday, January 18th, 2019.
The senior senator from the 8th requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guests. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. As guest of the senator from Raleigh, we have Carrie Smith. As guest of the senator from Fayette, we have Nathan McClung. As guest of the senator from Kanawha, Sylvia Ballard. And as my guests, Emily Lewis and Sia Haynes. If they would all please rise and the Senate give them a warm welcome. Thank you. You may be seated. Further introductions, the junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, it's my pleasure and yours to introduce the doc for the day. In the rear of the gallery, we have Dr. Benjamin Silverberg coming down from Morgantown, West Virginia. If the Senate would give him a warm welcome.
Further introductions? Further introductions. The senator from Greenbrier County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a family of pages who are here today that I'd like to introduce so we can make them feel welcome. If Corey Smith's family would please rise. We have his father, Chris, and his grandfather, Larry, who are here today. Welcome. And we also have with Nathan here today his parents, Brenda and Paul McClung. If you all will please stand and the Senate make them feel welcome. And finally, Mr. President, last but not least, I would like to welcome the family of our head doorkeeper, Jeff. His daughter, Tara, is here today, Tara Miller, with her children, Jackson, Haley, and Chloe, and her fiance, Terry. Will the Senate please make them feel welcome?
Further introductions, the senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, the father of my page, Sylvia Ballard, Matt Ballard, is here. Many of you know Matt. If he can stand and have the Senate make him feel welcome.
Further introductions, the junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the rear of the gallery, we have some folks from the National Federation of Independent Businesses. If you wouldn't mind standing, we have Christian Marsh, Brian Mink, Sharon Sykes, George Montgomery, Gina Gallion, and Mike Morris. If the Senate would give them a warm welcome.
Further introductions? Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of House Bill 2185 relating to the removal of animals left unattended in motor vehicles.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2307 relating to creating a provisional license for practicing barbering and cosmetology.
The message will be received and referred to the Committee on Finance. Further House messages?
No, sir.
Communications from the Executive?
There are none.
Reports from standing committees?
Your Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development has had under consideration the following bills dealing with rulemaking in agriculture: Senate Bill 193, Senate Bill 194, Senate Bill 195, Senate Bill 196, Senate Bill 197, and Senate Bill 198, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass, but under the original double committee references, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Dave Seipolt, Chair.
Report will be received under the bill's original double committee reference will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bills 223, 224, 225, 226, 227, 228, 229, and 230, Division of Labor Rule relating to wage payments and collection, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation that the Committee Substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 253, Protecting Consumers from Automatic Purchase Renewal and Continuous Service Offers, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same. With the recommendation that the Committee Substitute do pass, respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
That's all I have, sir.
Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 355 through 385 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
The junior senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill number 355 through Senate Bill number 385 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 12 by Senators Stallings, Maroney, and Swope, naming the U.S. Army Corporal Leroy Young Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 13 by Senators Romano, Baldwin, Beach, Facemeyer, Ehlenfeld, Jeffries, Palumbo, Plymel, Prezioso, Wolfel, Stallings, Maroney, Swope, and Hardesty, naming the U.S. Marine Sergeant Stephen E. Drummond Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 14 by Senators Smith, Seipolt, Stallings, Maroney, and Swope, naming the William Bill Thurman King Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 11 by Senators Jeffries, Lindsay, Stallings, Takubo, Seipolt, Maroney, Swope, Baldwin, Prezioso, and Klein, designating January 21, 2019 as Down Syndrome Awareness Day.
The senior senator from the 8th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, that the committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
The senior senator from the 8th requests unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with, resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, and resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The clerk will please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 11 designating January 21, 2019 as Down Syndrome Awareness Day.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very honored today to recognize the special families involved in the Down Syndrome Network of West Virginia. About 600 babies with Down syndrome are born in the United States each year. That means that 1 in every 700 is living with Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome have an extra portion of chromosome 21 present in all in some of their cells, and alters development and causes characteristics associated with Down syndrome. It is the most frequent cause of mild to moderate disability, and it occurs in all ethnic and economic groups. We are fortunate today, due to the support of the families and the Down Syndrome Network, more West Virginians with Down syndrome are participating in our society, including our schools, our workforce, and in social and recreational activities. When you are lucky enough to know someone with Down syndrome, you find that they are unique personalities and interests. They want to learn, to have fun, to be respected, and to find their place in the world, just like everyone else. I hope we remember that our special guests and their families are affected by the decisions that we make in this chamber. May I remind this body that we have more than 1,200 West Virginians on the waiting list for IDD waiver. Many of our citizens are with us today. I hope we will remember that some of them have been waiting for years. Let us please welcome the families of the Down Syndrome Network of West Virginia. Mr. President, I urge adoption of this resolution, and I request the yeas and nays.
Further discussion? Further discussion. The senator from Nicholas County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would be remiss if I didn't stand to rise in support of this particular resolution and the families that it honors. I've got a very special young lady that's standing in the back of the chamber. Today is her 18th birthday. And, you know, I have watched her grow up. She was in our Awana program when I was in Summersville. These people are very special, but their families are awesome. They really get in and champion what is necessary to provide support, not only immediately, but down the road in a long-term perspective of what they're going to need in the future. They can learn, but more importantly, I've learned from them because their loving spirit encourages us. It lifts us up when times are tough. These are very special people. And I will tell you, Mr. President, that it is worthy that they be honored today. And I urge, along with my fellow senator from Putnam, that we adopt this resolution.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of resolution. The yeas and nays have been demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 31 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting. Having voted in the affirmative, I declare the resolution adopted. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Junior Senator from the 17th moves the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. Senate will please come to order. For what purpose does the Senior Senator of the 5th seek recognition?
Request unanimous consent to return to the second order of business.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
I would like to make sure that all of us welcome someone that doesn't need a welcome, but we miss, and he was a great asset for this, and Kevin Baker, who's gone on to municipal government. Kevin? Oh, I see.
Further introductions? Not. Resolutions.
Senate Resolution 12 by Senator Carmichael, Mr. President. Tarr, Stallings, Seipolt, and Swope congratulating Ripley High School girls track team for winning the 2018 Class AAA State Championship.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day. Further resolutions?
Senate Resolution 13 by Senators Unger, Stallings, Seipolt, and Prezioso recognizing leadership Berkeley.
The Senior Senator from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Senior Senator from the 16th requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 13 recognizing leadership Berkeley for its service, dedication, and commitment to Berkeley County.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Not. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Junior Senator from the 17th moves the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Further resolutions?
No, sir.
Motions? Petitions?
There are none.
Unfinished business?
There is none.
Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 17 relating to probation eligibility. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 17 came out of the Judiciary Committee, amends one single section of the code, and it's Chapter 62, Article 12, Section 2, and that in current law is a section that addresses the eligibility for probation. So this statute delineates some offenses where people are not eligible ever to be placed upon probation, and then there are some offenses where under current law it says they could be placed upon probation by the court only if there's been a psychiatric evaluation of them prior to the sentence. And so this bill addresses that, amends that section of the code in two ways. Number one, it adds another offense to the list of offenses where a person could only be considered for probation after he's been evaluated. And that is offenses in Chapter 61, Article 8A relating to pornography. The other one, the other change affected by the bill is that it allows a psychological evaluation as opposed to just a psychiatric evaluation. And that reflects the dearth of psychiatrists throughout the state of West Virginia, making it difficult many times for people to be evaluated by a psychiatrist, but they can be evaluated in most communities throughout this state by licensed clinical psychologists. Mr. President, I'd be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question there being 31 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior Senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question there being 31 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 61, adding certain crimes for which prosecutor may apply for wiretap. Third reading of the bill.
Question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 61 amends also one single section of the state code. The section amended by the bill is Chapter 62, Article 1D, Section 8. And this section addresses the offenses for which a county prosecutor can apply to one of the judges who have been designated by the Supreme Court to be wiretap authorizing judges, the offenses for which a county prosecutor can seek a wiretap of someone's telephone. And members will remember on Friday, I guess it was Friday, we had an amendment on this bill on the floor which added the offense of extortion, but current law provides a whole list of offenses for which a prosecutor may seek a wiretap. And of course, just because a prosecutor seeks one doesn't mean he or she's automatically going to get it. The judge is going to have to find good cause and issue an order authorizing the
interception of those communications. But a big long list of offenses now comes up to a total of 15 offenses in the bill. If this bill passes in its current form, and I won't read them all, but they are the serious offenses in our law, including kidnapping, drug offenses, the amendment that we adopted on the floor on Friday adds the offenses of extortion and attempted extortion as includable in an application for a wiretap. Mr. President, be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge the passage of this bill.
Is there further discussion? The senator from Harrison County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the gentleman from Morgan yield?
Senator from Morgan yield. Senator does yield.
Thank you, Senator. I had to ask the question, did we ever come up with it in the judiciary? We had a long discussion about treason against the state of West Virginia. It's the only thing in this bill that bothers me. I just don't understand. Did we ever come up with an example of how you could commit treason against the state of West Virginia that wouldn't be treason against the United States of America?
Well, yes, I think it'd be possible to come up with an example. We have statute in 61, chapter 61, article 1, which is the article that defines crimes against the government. And treason is a defined offense in that article. And so the statutory definition, the elements of the offense include levying war against the government of the state of West Virginia. So, you know, I'm knocking on wood as I say this. It's not something you read about frequently that happens in you read about in the newspapers, but it's been a part of our code, I guess, since the formation of the state. But the offense of treason against the state is committed by an act of levying war against the government.
And I looked it up. Other than the Civil War, the only other time anybody's been prosecuted under it were the miners who were trying to unionize back in the early part of the 20th century. And that's my concern, that it could be used for political purposes. And I'm probably going to vote for the bill, but do you share any of those concerns?
Well, we're a little bit outside the scope of the bill, because remember now, the scope of the bill just relates to what are the circumstances when a prosecuting attorney can go to a judge and say, Your Honor, we've got this evidence that a crime of kidnapping or, in your hypothetical, treason is brewing, and we would like you to authorize us to intercept somebody's telephone communications. And again, so that's really this bill doesn't address whether or not treason should be an offense against the state or a crime.
But it does. My concern is it makes it easier to get a wiretap for political purposes, because the crime of treason against West Virginia is a bit amorphous at best. But thank you, Senator.
It could be amorphous, but you could imagine a situation with a bunch of armed people storming the Capitol to overthrow the government. Would be how the levying war against the government, how the offense would be committed the way it's defined now.
I'm on guard for Marylanders every day. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Further discussion. Further discussion. Not. Question for the Senator. Shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question there being 31 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent, not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question for the Senate is adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 119, specifying documents not subject to discovery and certain proceedings. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 119, it's not a committee substitute. It's the bill before us is the introduced bill. It amends two two existing sections of the code. They're in Chapter 30, Article 3C, and then it adds one new section to the code in the same article designated as Section 5. Article 3C of Chapter 30 relates to healthcare peer review organization protection. And so just a little bit of backup and history on this. This bill is very similar to, I think, identical to, maybe except for dates, to a bill that we passed last year, actually passed both houses of the legislature last year and was vetoed by the governor when the governor had a chance to review it. So reintroduced this year in the same form. This bill tries to strike the balance between protecting peer review information, which is and should be confidential, to allow healthcare providers that engage in peer review processes to utilize that process to improve internally their procedures and processes in a way that advances the cause of patient health. Balanced against that is the degree to which there's a right or need for people in litigation to get to information that is collected and gathered for various purposes. So what this bill does essentially is it tries to redefine the balance between the documents that are prepared by and on behalf of a healthcare provider for the purpose of improving quality, delivery, and efficiency of healthcare, and the purpose of credentialing or reviewing healthcare providers, and that's confidential, of course. And the bill says that those kinds of documents and information are not subject to discovery in litigation, and they include their examples: nursing home incident reports or event reports, with an exception. The exception is reports pertaining to the plaintiff himself in that civil action, or reports of same or similar incidents within a reasonable time frame of the events at issue in the civil action, containing only factual information but excluding personal identification information. Another such document that would be granted protections of the statute, this bill, are documents related to a review organization and those proceedings for hiring, disciplining, terminating, credentialing, issuing staff privileges, reviewing staff privileges, or alleged misconduct of a healthcare provider. Another example are review organization documents. Another example are quality control and performance improvement documents. Another example would be documents satisfying regulatory obligations related to quality assurance and performance improvement. And another example yet would be reviews, audits, and recommendations of consultants or other persons or entities engaged in the performance of peer review. The bill endeavors to make clear that original source documents are not exempt. And so, and they don't become exempt just because they've been pulled into a peer review process. So, but the idea is what we want is for healthcare providers to examine thoroughly, audit, and learn from these review processes without fear that the candid conclusions they draw are going to become ammunition against them in litigation. So that's the objective of the bill, and we balance it in the bill, I think, with making it clear that original source documents are not cloaked in any sort of protection. So that's the purpose of the bill, Mr. President. I'll be happy to try to answer questions about it. Otherwise, I urge the passage of this bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 25 yeas, 6 nays, 3 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further bills on third reading?
No, sir.
Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 3, establishing West Virginia Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senators Palumbo, Takubo, Lindsay, and Jeffries move to amend the bill on page 9,
The
section
senior
1.
senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 3 is the small cell bill that would provide standards and regulations for the deployment of small cell facilities. This bill is essentially technical in nature and clarifying things, with the exception of that it would provide for the cities could have a $100 a day fee against wireless providers if they fail to make required repairs after receiving written notification of the need for those. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? Further discussion? Not the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendments as offered by the senior senator from the 17th, and all amendments be considered as one. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendments adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 62, requiring participation in drug court program before discharge of certain first-time drug offenses. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 152, relating generally to criminal offense expungement. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senators Jeffries and Trump move to amend the bill on
The
page
senator
2.
from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Senator from Morgan County requests unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read, and that all amendments be considered as one. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The First Amendment, the Jeffries-Trump Amendment, reflects, will create an opportunity for someone to ask for move to a permanent expungement application if his eligible offense has been 8 years, at least 8 years. Let me back up. If the sentence for his eligible offense has been completed at least 8 years before the application. So in the bill, what we do for the eligible offenses is a person can apply for a preliminary order of expungement after 3 years. You completely finish your offense, your punishment, your sentence, your probation for an offense where expungement is authorized or eligible. Under the bill, as it's working its way through the committee and now to the floor, once 3 years have elapsed, you can petition the court for a preliminary order of expungement. And the court will conduct a hearing. If a preliminary expungement order is entered, then the records become sealed, and 5 years later, 5 years after that, if the person hasn't committed some new offense, he can move to a final order of expungement for that offense. The amendment recognizes that what we've got in West Virginia, we think, is a good bit of pent-up demand, and that there are people out there for nonviolent property offenses who are carrying these convictions that occurred, convictions and sentences that occurred more than 8 years ago, that were completed 10 years ago, 15 years ago. If this amendment is adopted, then it'll allow something we didn't really consider in committee. Actually, the senator from the 8th brought the idea up afterward, and in my opinion, it's a great idea. But if the offenses and sentence were completed 10 or 15 years ago, then why start the 3-year followed by 5-year process if you've already got the 8 years in and you haven't reoffended in that whole period of time? You can go ahead and bypass the preliminary expungement order and ask to be considered for a final order of expungement. I'd be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the adoption of this amendment.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, all those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendments adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Trump moved to amend the bill on page 3.
The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain this amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment will fill a couple holes that I missed inadvertently in crafting this bill regarding eligible offenses. And what we want to do, I think, is a matter of policy, is be very careful, you know. So what we've said in this bill, certain kinds of offenses are not going to be expungible. And there's a list in the section, and we are adding a couple things to that list and clarifying a couple things to make sure we're not creating a loophole. Let me tell you what one obvious one is. It's the offense of incest. If this amendment is adopted, a conviction for incest will not be expungible. Arguably, without this amendment, under the previous version of the bill, it might be. But we're clarifying that we're withholding from any opportunity for expungement any felony of offense of violence against the person, and we're adding a reference, an internal reference in this subdivision to another subdivision of the bill which actually defines what those offenses are. So big picture, at sort of its simple level, violent crimes against people, crimes involving minors, sexual offenses are not going to be eligible any time for expungement. Those are all listed and delineated in this amendment. There's some other offenses. Now, this was in the original bill without the amendment, but we learned in this process, is interesting, that one of the things you can't expunge without risking the loss of federal highway dollars is any offense that would preclude somebody from getting a commercial driver's license. So those are generally misdemeanor offenses. I guess it could be a felony for a serious traffic offense, but some misdemeanor offenses preclude people from being eligible to get a commercial driver's license under Chapter 17E. We could make those expungible, but we've been notified by the federal government that if we do that, you know, it costs millions of federal highway dollars to the state of West Virginia. So those are all excluded in this version of the bill and in the amendment. Mr. President, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions about this amendment. Otherwise, I urge its adoption.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Further bills on second reading?
Yes, sir. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 240, repealing certain legislative rules no longer authorized or are obsolete. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Further bills on second reading?
No, sir.
Bills on first reading. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered read a first time and advanced to second reading.
Junior Senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered introduced and advanced to, be considered read a first time and advanced to second reading. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guest. Introduction of guest. The Senator from Raleigh County.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I believe that we have in the North Gallery and perhaps in other galleries a group with us today at the Capitol for the West Virginians for Health Freedom. If you would please stand, we would like to recognize you. Please join me in welcoming them.
Further introductions, the Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seated in the North Gallery is Spencer Gilbert. He represents numerous global industries, and he is here today advocating for public land usage for outdoor recreation, mainly for OHVs and ORVs, which are off-highway and off-road vehicles. is an $84 billion industry, that he believes West Virginia can tap into. Senate, would you please join me and make Spencer welcome?
Further introductions. Further introductions. Remarks by members of the Senate. Remarks by members of the Senate. The senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I asked my fellow senators to just give me a brief moment to let them know that today Women in Racing is here. And if they get the opportunity to talk to any of the ladies who are here from all over the state who are involved in horse racing, it's a great opportunity to learn more about it. And us ladies have been invited to a luncheon immediately after session. But I just wanted to let you guys know, if you have any questions about that, today would be a great day to get those answered. Thank you.
Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the senators from Cabell, Wetzel, and Ohio be granted for those senators.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. For junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also request that the remarks made by the senior senator from the 8th and the senator from Nichols regarding Senate Resolution 11 be printed to the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Finance Subcommittee B will meet today at 3 p.m. at 451 M for budget hearings from the Department of Commerce and the Secretary of State. Then the full committee will meet at the conclusion of that, or 3:45 p.m. to run out 2 bills, and they've been posted.
Further announcements, the senator from Jefferson County.
The Senate Education Committee will meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. in room 451M, and the agenda will be posted shortly.
Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet today at 3 p.m. in the Judiciary Committee room in the West Wing.
The senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to mention that tomorrow is Preston County Day, and because of the rotunda being closed down, they will not be serving buckwheat cakes, unfortunately. However, I think that they will have a breakfast on the house side of sausage, gravy, and biscuits. Everyone is welcome.
The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Natural Resources will be meeting today at 1 p.m. in 208 West. The agenda has been posted.
Further announcements? Further announcements. If not, the senator from Wood County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance will meet this afternoon at 2 p.m. in room 451M.
The senator from Mercer County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Infrastructure and Transportation will meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. room 451M.
Further announcements? The senator from Monongalia County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Infrastructure and Transportation will meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the Finance Committee room 451M.
No.
Just to clarify, Transportation and Infrastructure will meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. in room 451M. Further announcements. Further announcements. Not question for the Senate is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.